How are we all doing? Yay! Great. My name's Dan. I am an audio engineer by day and an organizer by night. This is about unions. So I'm going to start off, what are unions? So I want to know how many people here know what a union is. Raise your hand. Okay, that's good. So for those of you who don't know, we're not talking about set theory. Yes, I did do a maths degree. I was not very good, but this bit I knew. We're not talking about set theory. We're talking about trade unions. And so trade is in any kind of work. And ultimately, what unions are about rights. So the rights we have in our daily lives. A lot of us, especially at this stage in our careers when we're new, we maybe don't know what our workers' rights are. And you aren't to know because we're not taught that. We're not, when you go to study at university, chances are it may have had one lecture, probably wasn't, you were like, I could skip that one. Not important now. It's very important. And it's something that is very tied it's tied to something that we don't really think about because chances are we won't need to. Because companies will say, and this is where I'd like to thank Kezia, the first talk was perfect as like a launch pad into this talk because companies, although they're offering you an opportunity, they're ultimately trying to use you for their gain. And this is where you have to look out for yourself with your workers' rights. So companies are capitalist. They're going to try and use your value. Nathaniel earlier was talking about value and the value that they're putting into you. That value that's what the company cares about. It's not necessarily you, and that's why you have to look out for yourself. And you're not alone because you work at that company with other people. And those workers, if you combine together, that's when you get unions. Some big wall of text. You're not meant to do this in presentations, if you're ever going to do it. But the big things here are that unions are meant to represent workers and employees in big companies and small companies, any size of company, but it's ultimately representing the employees versus the employer. And these are some of the things that they can do for you. So if you have a union, you can get engaged with some kind of democracy. Democracy is fun when it works. So you can practice a little bit actually working in a union where you can vote on things and you go like votes for yay, nay, and it's like you're actually in parliament. It's fun. But you elect workplace reps and branch officers. So I'm an officer of the union, the Game Workers Unite UK union for the West Midlands region, so our region here. And I was elected by people in my region to represent our region. And here are some examples of things that unions in the past have done for their workers. They have made sure that these things are part of your daily lives, part of your working lives, and some of them, a lot of these you might think are taken for granted. They're not. Sometimes employers will try and slip you by, try and get one on you probably because you're new and you don't really know, you maybe don't know your workers' rights. They probably don't think you're in a union because the tech industry, we're not particularly well unionized at the moment. So we're particularly vulnerable to this kind of thing. And then if you're really thinking about what's in it for me, huh? What's in it for me? Every union in the UK will provide you with legal support in cases. So you can, if you're getting discriminated at work for any legitimate reason, you should, and you're part of a member of a union, you can talk to your union and they will be like, that's out of order. And then they'll come in and you can sue your company. And then you have a case, and then you get some money, which is great. Yeah, so if that's sounding great, where do I start? Those of you who didn't know about unions earlier, the best starting point is probably for the UK, the miners' strike. If you don't know what that is, some good starting points are Billy Elliot, either the film or the musical. The musical is probably better, in my opinion. We have Tom Holland because of it. So, and Pride, which is a wonderful film about how LGBT people supported the miners' strike. It's all about Maggie Thatcher and that. Yes, thank you. Love those boos. There's going to be a few of these. These are called QR codes. They're very rarely used. They're quite useful, but that is a QR code for the link on the left. If you want to read up on labour and the complications between employers and employees and power dynamics in work and seeing them in films, this website's really good. It has a good list of films that can help you get into this stuff. So, some example unions that we have here in the UK. I'm just going to name a few out from on here. So we've got the National Union of Journalists, which is for journalists. We have the Musicians Union for musicians. The Communications Workers Union, the CWU, they're for the Royal Mail. And if you follow unions in any way, you will have seen that they've been having some big strikes and proposing to strike, and the Royal Mail refusing for them to strike, and they're one of the biggest vocational-based unions in the UK, and I would highly recommend, if you're interested in how big unions can get, CWU is a good union to have a look at, and they're very active, they're really strong, very inspirational. And then you've got Equity for actors and performers. And then we've got, on the right-hand side, we've got Unison and Unite. So these are two really big unions. They're massive, and they represent all sorts of workers from various different industries. And another such union is BEC2. So some of you, just going to do another quick query. How many of you are actually in a union? Okay, that's good. Yay. How many of you are with BEC2? One person, two people. Okay, so you know about BEC2. Everyone else, so BEC2 is for Broadcasting, Entertainment, Communication, and Theatre Union. And they have a small little games sector. But the thing about a big union like BEC2 is they're known as service unions or business unions, which means that they have a structure much like many big organizations, like companies, where you have bureaucracy. And so you have levels to that. And that can be good. It means that it's quite efficient and well run. But it does mean that it is maybe less radical. It's not going to create large changes to an industry. And especially a broad union like BEC2 is going to be looking after various different avenues, so they haven't necessarily got, they're not tailored to a specific industry. Whereas if we look at a union like IWGB, which has been coming up in the news a lot recently, they like to make a lot of noise. It's the Independent Workers of Great Britain. I won't go into why it's called Independent Workers, because it's a very long story. But basically, the independent doesn't mean self-employed. It just means it's from the history from which the union came. And it focuses on industries that haven't traditionally been unionized. So we've got branches for social care workers, cleaners, Deliveroo riders, Uber drivers. All of these All of these workers are separate branches of the IWGB. And the thing about IWGB is it's lightweight and it's got a flat structure, as opposed to a hierarchy, which is the way I kind of used it is it's kind of like a bootstrap for unions. So it's like, what's the very minimal you want? And IWGB offers that, which is basically legal support and a very strong kind of press team who are very active and get news out very quickly. So one such bit of news is very recent. A couple of days ago, we've had this case, IWGB, against the police, because James Farrar, in the top left, your top right, he was prosecuted by the police for assault. He used a megaphone. He didn't whack someone around the head with it. He just was using it. And the police were trying to accuse him of assault. Luckily, the judge thought that was bollocks. So threw that out. So now IWGB and James are trying to sue the police. And another QR code there and link there to that. And you'll see slides available, I think, later, so you can follow that through. But that gives you a bit more information on that. And this also is in order to sue the government, they're going to need a bit of funds. Because it's lightweight, because it's quite radical, they're not a big union and big unions do have big pots of money. They're very much in the same kind of kettle of fish as kind of non-profits, charity, where they need to do a lot of fundraising. So if you think our right to protest should be defended and you've got a spare £5, you should definitely maybe pop that into the pot. So IWGB leads us into Game Workers Unite UK. So Game Workers Unite UK is a branch of IWGB, and as using the bootstrap that IWGB is, we were like, oh, that sounds nice. We'll use that, and then we've created our own union, which is Game Workers Unite UK, branch of IWGB. And it's rank and file unionism, where we're all equal. No one has more power than anyone else, but everybody has an equal vote and an equal voice. The only things that where there are positions, there's responsibility, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have power. There is obviously power in that someone who calls himself a chair sounds important. So you're like, oh, I'm the chair. And then people go, ooh. But other than that, there is no power. And we are autonomous, so we run ourselves. We're all volunteers. We all do it off our backs because we want to change the industry. In fact, what we want to do are 4 things. We all came together when we formed the union, and we were like, things are bad in the games industry. We want to change things in 4 key areas. So we want to end this thing called crunch. I'm sure you've heard of it. I was just talking to Ruth before I came on stage about Cyberpunk 2077. You may have seen that they've delayed it. Not because they wanted to not let their workers not crunch. They're still going to crunch. In fact, they're going to do more crunch. This is exactly what we want to stop. And that's why we formed this union primarily. But we also want to improve diversity and inclusion efforts across the UK, because it's incredibly CIS white. I mean, I'm case in point, but I hope I'm trying to change that. It's not great, and we need to do better, and we want to work with all sorts of people in the games industry to improve representation. We also want to support people who have been abused. This is an area that we're very proud that we've won lots of cases for our members. So we've been going just over a year, and we've helped people who have had harassment and discrimination at their workplaces, and we've helped those people in cases. And then finally, we want to try and create security because when a game is being developed, there's bugs, and people have to find those bugs. Those wonderful QA people often are on 0-hour contracts. So we want to try and solve that as well. And some other examples of where organizing is happening, Riot Games over in LA, you might know them from League of Legends, but they've been in the news a lot in the last couple of years because they have an inherent sexist culture that was exposed through Kotaku, and then some female employees sued Riot, and then there were walkouts, and this was a great example of organizing, and it's crucial to state that they haven't got a union yet. So organizing doesn't require unions. Unions are ultimately a product from organizing. And that's why I want you to take that in, because the tech industry hasn't really got any bespoke unions yet. Another example is this is a great video. I'm just going to leave the QR code there, and you can find it later, or you can Google or DuckDuckGo it. I'm divorcing myself from Google at the moment. PMG is People Make Games. It's a YouTube series by Chris Bratt, who used to work at Eurogamer, and it's a great example of what unionism looks like, because Blizzard were trying to fire 100 and something people in France, and then hire them again for cheaper in Ireland. And this video goes into all of the issues with that and how the unions. France has got a great history of unionism. I don't know if that's a word. Unions there. So if you want to go and look into that, I highly recommend watching this video. But a lot of you, okay, another raise of hands. I'm enjoying seeing the hands. Who here works in video games? Hi, Beck. Beck came with me. So none of you work in video games, which is fine, because it's not just, as I was saying, it's not just video games. This, in fact, should bleed out into other areas, and we've been seeing walkouts at Google. And in fact, just last November, 4 employees were fired, and they think it was for organizing efforts. So to provide some context, those employees working at Google and then might be trying to get some union or organizing efforts happening at the workplace, maybe organizing meetups outside of work, and then Google, it's possible they might have used some documents to share around things, and then Google fired them, and that is something called union busting. Boo. Union busting sucks. And so this is something we want to make sure is quashed a lot. And so that's where we're going to see in America code CWA and going to see hopefully those Google employees and other people in tech and games, because what in America you can see is there being a kind of the sisterhood of tech and games coming together to form a branch of the union, which is CWA over in America, to create code CWA. AOC tweeted about it, which is awesome. And this is an example of what hopefully tech organizing in the UK might look like. So that brings me nicely on to the Tech Workers Coalition. Who here has heard of the Tech Workers Coalition? Few people. Okay, that's great, because that means the rest of you, this is new. The Tech Workers Coalition is ultimately a movement very similar to so Game Workers Unite UK is a union, but was formed out of an international movement called Game Workers Unite, which is not a union, but is an effort to create organizing and hopefully unions in various places around the world. And Tech Workers Coalition is trying to do exactly the same. It's trying to get people at workplaces to talk to each other about organizing, and put those people together. And they have a great website that I'd highly recommend you checking out, and I've got a link later. So I'm going to quickly go over reasons why organizing is good, and why I hope that some of you today will go away, go to Tech Workers Coalition website and join the Slack and take part of the conversation. It's a great way to meet new people and create safe spaces. If you haven't heard the term safe space yet, it's something that is becoming more common in workplaces and outside of workplaces. It's the idea of trying to create places with good codes of conduct, such as this event that you're here today. I would regard this as a very good safe space for people to feel like they can come here without being harassed or discriminated against. And you could organize similar meetups in your hometowns. Find a pub, use a free service like Eventbrite, or there are other services available. And also, I'd highly recommend try to keep it dry, like this event as well, because there is a growing trend that alcohol is just not great in social meetups. It's nicer to use other methods to comfort people, do some ice breaking. You could use those tips that Matthew had earlier. They're great. But it's about meeting new people and meeting new people together to learn about something that a lot of us really don't. I didn't know anything about unions 2 years ago, and here I am today. It's about, you could learn about the history of unions in our country and in Europe. You would also, it's a great stepping stone into other areas of activism. So I'm sure you've seen all the stuff about Extinction Rebellion. If you were ever interested in trying to do some climate change activism, this is a perfect stepping stone. In fact, one of the previous members of the exec for our union at Gameworkers Unite UK now does environmental climate change activism. And similarly, I was very invested in this election, more than I have before. And that, I think, was down to unionism, because I now feel more passionate about improving the life for everybody. And it's a great way to learn new skills that you probably can't get elsewhere. It's not, you can learn some of these skills at work, of interpersonal communication skills, but there's also a lot of learning workers' rights and learning something that is very different to our very technical expertise. Being in an environment which is divorced from that is a great way to learn new skills. Just checking the time. Oh, I'm doing great. It's also incredibly rewarding because, as I said earlier, the union that I helped form has changed lives. It's helped people who are worse off. And this is another reason why maybe you should join a union, is because if you feel pretty good, I'm feeling pretty great. My life's pretty good. There are people out there who aren't, who are in worse positions, and especially in unions such as the IWGB, who represent cleaners, immigrants who come very soon, don't know if they'll be in the country or not. So that is something that, as part of a union which is representing those people, I feel like I'm helping in a way. And if I wanted to step up even more, they would give me plenty of opportunities to do so. And it's every single time I have done anything for the union, it's incredibly rewarding. You inspire others and also constantly are inspired. And you do feel like you are maybe changing the world, which is nice to feel. So this is the website you should check out. There are meetings in London. There is a Tech Workers Coalition London already. So if you're London-based, that exists. If you're not, I would love for you to definitely join the Slack, and then maybe set up a meeting here in Birmingham. If you're based in Birmingham or wherever you're from, set up a little meeting. Can be just in a pub. Set up a little meetup. and chat about your work. Chat about what's good about your work, what's not about the work. And everything you've heard today, creating a space to talk about all of the things you've heard about today, like the brag docs, all of these things would be perfect to be discussed in such an environment, but also with your fellow workers, because it's all about camaraderie and comrades and being better, making the workplace better for everyone. So on that, I would like to say thank you. Go join a Slack. Yeah, thank you.